Hey Jim here. How's everybody doing this morning? I'm doing pretty good. It is the 15th of September. We're getting closer and closer to archery season. One more month away. Um, but I'll be using a much more robust compound bow for any of the hunts I do. Yes, I will do some recurve archery hunting, but I will probably mostly do varmint hunting on that. And I'll go into more depth in my Patreon. So if you want to know more about that, and I won't be posting but small clips of hunting or what we're doing, but all the hunting videos will be posted to Patreon to include varmint hunts. So that being said, I want to go into a thing that's really popped up recently on the YouTube channels as far as archery and KHATRA, and what they're referring to in certain instances as a double release. Now, I did a video on this already, only based upon the information I have already gained from the other three sources, the only three sources I've seen so far in the KHATRA, or mentioning KHATRA. Those Charlie's Running Archery, Max Tactical Archery, and then Armin's channel. And I'll link Armin's channel down below in the description so you can watch his video, and explains the double bump and the KHATRA and other things. So, I mean, this is a thing that really a lot of people should understand. And since Armin is an instructor in archery, you can go watch his videos for all of the things that he's done in his past. He's got a longer video that explains everything as far as his credentials go. And that's the thing about, archery that you have to understand. You can read the books and get the lingo in and make it sound really good, but he does all the stuff. Trial and error, misses, makes, the whole 9 yards. He explains everything on why if he shoots a certain arrow one way, he can't shoot another arrow the same way, with different grainage, different tips, field points, broadheads, etc. And he also did the polymer tips, which you'll see. And this is one of the things that I also bring up, is that the polymer tips are really not that accurate. I shot 2 polymer tips yesterday, and one just took off. The other person watching me shoot, sitting there going, "Wow, that one didn't even come close." Because I said, because of the blade, if it catches any sorts of wind or anything, will not be that accurate on a lighter bow. It doesn't have the force to project the trajectory that it should have, or that I want it to have. So if I shoot a polymer tip on a 70-pound bow, the 70-pound bow, based upon the force given to the knock shaft broadhead, would be, it's 125 grains, so it's light, but it's extremely wide. I would imagine if they leaf bladed that would be an aerodynamic plus. So I'm going to bring that up to cold steel and see what they can do. So that way, there can be a much better medium as far as accuracy on lighter bows, because there's no force there projecting it 20 yards into a target before it allows the bow or the arrow to slow down and deviate based upon whatever wind or crosswind or cold air, warm air mass it goes through in that short period, because of shade. If you've never looked at some of the ranges that you could shoot, or you're in the woods and you have this field, and then you have a tree, set of trees, and then you have another opening, and there's your doe 20 yards away or 40 yards away, and you have this tree you have to shoot under. There's shade there. It's going to be way cooler. So there's going to be an air situation. Well, it's hard to explain scientifically without breaking it down, so I'll break it down as far as I can. The air is colder, so therefore the mass of the air is going to be different than what it was when it's hot. Molecules and so on and so forth involved. So the arrow is not going to act right, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it. Because a lot of people don't realize, but when you have a weaker bow, that becomes a much bigger issue than a 70-pound plus bow. Okay, and it all depends upon, carbon shaft, wooden does deviate harder, especially if you only have it on. So you're shooting a 70-pound bow and you actually shoot a wooden arrow. There's going to be a lot more flex in that arrow, if you will, based upon the spine. So I'm not saying never ever shoot a 500 or 600 spine on a 70-pound bow with a wooden arrow. That will not work out great. There are going to be problems, and you may impale your hand. Safety is first and foremost when it comes to shooting any weapon. I don't care what it is, even a slingshot, or you get one of them little David slings that flip around and throw the rock out of, or a lead ball or whatever you're shooting, steel ball. You have to be very careful. There's a safety protocol on everything you do. However, I'm not saying shoot a weaker spine on a heavier bow, but on a heavier bow, nonetheless, unless you have a titanium rod that doesn't flex, you won't. I mean, you're going to have issues. You won't see any deviation possibly in a titanium rod with an arrowhead on it, or shaved down to a field point, etc. But you will definitely see flex in a lot of the other arrows. It causes the arrows not to perform as well as what you like. If we could do pinpoint accuracy all day long, those bows would sell like crazy along with those arrow setups. But it's a work in progress for you to become so accurate. So the double bump, or the double release, and what I call the bump factor. So when you shoot, like I said in the other video, pull back, release, and if you don't, release again, or push your arrow out of the way, basically, and then you're pushing the arrow forward as well. You're doing really three things, and Armin articulates that very well, and I understand it. But I didn't bring it up in the last video because when you're you're pushing out because you're already out here anyway, and then pop. So it's really a work in progress of you mechanically, muscle memory wise, become a 1, 2, 3 type of situation. So it's not pop pop pop, or it is pop 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 pop, if you will, 3 pops. So pop 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 instead of just a pop pop like I was doing. So it's up to you to practice that. It's up to you to get good with that, and that way you can become more accurate in archery. And there's trial and error on everything. You have to get, like I've always said, you've got to go out and get different types of arrows and see which one your bow likes best. And me having multiple bows, it's really difficult because I do know that this arrow likes the yellow practice arrows I use, wood grain looking ones, and they work really well with the Cryptos as well. The Cryptos are 350 spine, 31-inch arrows, and they have field points. Some of them have broadheads, but I'll be taking the 150 grain broadheads and setting up a 3D target here in about a month out at a long property, and I'll be shooting a 60-yard deer. So that's the one thing about 60 yards. That'll be about the maximum that you'll want to shoot, and we'll be using probably a Samick Sage. I haven't decided if I'm going to get a Samick Sage or a Black Hunter. So I'm going to probably do a poll and see which one that you would prefer, based upon the information you have. Not that you ever shot one, not that anybody else has ever shot one, based upon the description of the information of each of the bows. I mean, and it would have to be a 60-pound bow. There's no 55, 50, 40, whatever. That's not going to work. 60 pounds in order to shoot that deer at 60 yards. So it would be like 10 yards per pound, or rather 1 yard per pound. So bear with me on that. We'll get to that and put the 3D target out at 60 yards, and it'll be a deer target, and we'll go from there. So, but like I said, practice. Always remember to practice, and always remember to breathe. Your breathing, get it into a good cycle, concentrate, and you'll become a much more consistent archer in your accuracy. But watch the video Armin puts out there. I'll put it in the description down below, and you guys check that out and follow his tutelage, and you will do well. So we'll see you on the next one.